Hello there. Thanks for joining me today on Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Today we have a very interesting topic and a very important topic for every single parent and every single household, family. That's financial management, putting your financial house in order. Getting your financial act together, if you will, is really what we're going to focus on today. We have a very special guest to join us and will lead us through the discussion of the facts and how to put our financial house in order. Mr. Ron Hendricks of Trinity Western University. He's the director of Planned Giving, and we'll have a chance to chat with him a little bit today on this topic of financial order and financial planning as we look ahead as a family. We're basing it, remember, on my book, Dr. Teach Me to Parent. And in this book, we have topics that relate to your putting your own financial place in order. You know, if you're going to teach your children to be financially responsible, it starts with you. You as a parent need to be financially responsible. If you have a financial plan, your children will operate with a financial plan as they mature and as they earn their own income and manage their own funds. But if your financial matter and your financial house is not in order, your children will probably live similarly and have a chaotic financial life themselves. So that's why this is important. Putting your financial place together, your financial plan together, your financial system together, so that you are in a position to recommend that to your children so that they would live similarly as they become adults and as they become financially independent. So that's where we are today, and that's our general topic. And let me put this into context, if I may, by just giving you a quote that I think is relevant to our discussion today. And Mr. Hendricks is going to elaborate on this just a little bit as we talk a little bit later. Here's the quote. "It isn't money that makes people work harder. It's appreciation." And that's when it's important in the work world to be appreciated. Because when you're appreciated, you will work harder. You don't work for the money. You work for the recognition and for the acceptance of your work and for the appreciation of your work and for the gratitude that your supervisor, that your employer, that your owner has for the efforts that you put forth in your own work. That's really what makes the difference. Obviously, money's important, and that's why we're going to talk about it today. But in the work world and in your life, in the daily living, we operate on the basis of appreciation. Do people appreciate us as individuals? Do they appreciate what we do, how we produce, and how we perform? And if they do, obviously, money then follows. It's the money that follows the appreciation. That's why we're motivated to do what we do and why we work so hard on a day-to-day basis. Now, let's turn to our guest, Mr. Ron Hendricks, and let's take a look at the issues of financial planning and how this kind of all fits together. So the Director of Gift Planning of Trinity Western University, Mr. Ron Hendricks, is going to tell us, first of all, Ron, how was money managed in your home as you grew up as a child? I mean, did you have a good example of money management, or was your family chaotic and you had to learn how to manage your money as you became an adult?
Yeah, that's a great question, Allan, because it relates well to how children learn from parents all the way through life, whether it be about finances or their values in life, their relationship with each other as well as with the people around them. Money for me was not an important thing. We had to earn, we had to give, and we had to divide it up. We gave our tithes from what we earned from a very young age. And so without even knowing it or a formal training, I learned how to manage what little bit money you have as a children just by dealing with the
responsibility. So you didn't come from a family of wealth, you know, where money was freely available.
No, not at all. We came from a very moderate family, and my parents always lived frugally, and that becomes a way of life.
Yes. And then you, I assume, operated on that basis as you became an adult, and then you became married, and then has a family, and taught your own family.
Yes.
I mean, do you think you taught your own family pretty much the way that you were taught as a child?
Right. You learn that as you go, and you make some mistakes. You learn from those mistakes, and I always said the first time's an education, the second time's a mistake. So you learn from that,
Sure.
and you move forward with that. And so you take what you have and you divide it up. And I can remember sitting down with our kids when they were small and having them sit side by side when I would be paying bills, and you divide it up as to what you do first, what you do second, and how much you save and how much you give.
Sure. That leads to a question that I have, and that is, I want you to assume something, Ron, and that is, you're a young family, maybe one child, two children, maybe three, young family just beginning to become independent, have a job, now have some income, and now you have to start looking at how you're going to live on the income you make. You have to live on the income that you have at your disposal, whether one is working or two people in the family are working. But whatever income you have, the total income you have, assume that we have a young family. What are the 3, 4, 5 steps that they need to follow? What's the piece of advice that you would say, here's how you start out? This is the starting point for a young family.
Yeah, very good question, Alan, because we all start out young, isn't that right? And
That's
then
true.
If we choose to marry and if we choose to have children, that brings up, some people say, issues or problems, but to me, really, it's an opportunity. And for young families or their parents or their grandparents, it's a lot less about how much you make. It's more about how much you spend. And as long as you spend less than you make, you never run out of money. Then it's a matter of budgeting. And so for a young family, it's just critical that they stay and spend less than they make, spend less than you earn, and to make sure you have a savings. If you start out with a savings of emergency fund of $1,000, you know things are going to happen. And if you can just put aside $100, $200 a month until you get to that $1,000 mark, you know you're going to have something there that when an emergency happens, it might be your hot water tank breaks or your car has an issue, or you need tires or whatever it might be. You don't have to go to the credit card every time. And then you use some of the emergency fund, you build it back up.
Interesting point, because I think most of us kind of use the credit card as our emergency fund.
Right,
and that's always has an interest with it, so it's always more. But what you're saying is a young family should start out by either putting $1,000 aside, if they have that, or just put a little bit each paycheck into a separate fund, into a bank somewhere or whatever, and just keep $1,000 out of sight.
Absolutely. Like it's not even there unless something comes up. And that doesn't mean that it's the pizza on Friday night that becomes an emergency. That's not an emergency. It's when something goes sideways, or you need to go to the doctor, you need that deduction or whatever it might be. You've got cash there without dipping into the credit card. Once you start on the credit card roll, it's really difficult to break that.
So when you use that $1,000 for something, the car needs tires, that kind of thing, then I assume the first thing you do then is build it back up to $1,000.
Absolutely.
I mean, you want to maintain $1,000 savings, trust fund, kind of reserve fund, put it away for emergency fund, I guess is the best way to call it, right?
It's not a day-to-day living. It's not what you buy your groceries out of. That's what you plan. That's part of your budget. Your light and your heat bill all comes out of your budget. That's not an emergency.
What else should a young couple have in that first step of putting their financial house in order?
Yeah, well, every adult, but in particular, every young couple should have a last will and testament, along with the power of attorney. What most people don't realize is that if they don't plan their own estate, and that's not talking about money, that's just talking about a last will and testament, the state that you live in has one for you. So you can either use the default will of the state, or you can plan your own. And that's where you actually name an executor, somebody that would execute after your death. That's where you would name guardian for children that you have or you might have in the future. And you would plan for power of attorney as well, because there's a greater chance for a younger person to be injured or become sick than there is actually to die. So power of attorney would act on your behalf financially in health care while you're alive. At your death, that's when your executor would take over and distribute your estate.
When I was first married and young, that was probably the last thing I thought about, was having a will. and having a document that's power of attorney in case I would die or be in an accident or be incapacitated in some way. You don't think about that. But what you're saying is a young couple should have a will in place, not because they have a lot of money, but because they have a child or they have children, and that should something happen to a parent or both parents, the will states what would happen then to the children, where the children go.
Yeah, that would be part of it. And then it also allows people to have the power, that's where the power of attorney or executive comes in, to close out their life. And young people in particular think they're invincible. Like, I'm never going to die, I'm just getting started, I don't have any money.
I think
that's a normal thought. But we all know people who have died that's younger than we are. And you can have a stroke, you can have a disease, you can be in an accident. That's why we call them accidents, right? They're not planned. That happens at any age, any stage in life. And then once you have that in place, it's like it's good for a long time. Every 5 years, 10 years, you want to dust it off, take a look at it, and make any changes at that time.
How does a young couple get a will written up? I mean, that sounds to me like it's a very expensive process and something that would be maybe not even possible if you're working on a limited income.
Yeah. Because that's often a barrier. It becomes a roadblock for a lot of folks. It's more the perception than it is the reality. And generally, you can have a will and power of attorney and living will, all those documents written for $500 or $600. If indeed that is so totally out of sight, in most states, you actually can do what we call a holographic will. You can write it out in your handwriting. You can have it witnessed and notarized and signed and dated. But that carries some risk to it as well, that if it's not done right, that there's too many challenges once you get to a court.
What about these wills that you can kind of get a document from the local stationery store or, online somewhere and just write up some kind of a statement of a will? Is that valid?
Generally, they are valid if they're properly written, whether it's illegalzoom.com or trustmakers.org. There's all kinds of online, or the local stationery store often will have something that you can get. The difficulty is if you don't do it exactly right, it's invalid. And you don't know whether it's done right if it's your first time. And so you just remove all that risk, going to an attorney, making sure you do your homework ahead of time, making sure you've made your decisions ahead of time as to who you want to fulfill those obligations that you're going to ask them to with guardians and executor, and then going into your attorney and having it all done.
Sure. I imagine this kind of a young couple that has a baby, their first child, and they get a lot of gifts, how that always goes on. And maybe it would be wise for a young couple to ask people to donate money to create a will, so that when the child is born, there's a will, so that child is protected. Their finances are protected. Their estates is protected. Their assets are protected. Right from the beginning is what you're really saying is a good thing to do.
Absolutely. It would be a great idea. Unfortunately, generally it doesn't happen because there's so many other financial needs. Maybe a good gift for a parent to a new child and grandchild would be a first will.
Right. Sure. That's right. Well, look, we've been talking with Mr. Ron Hendricks of Trinity Western University, Langley, British Columbia, Director of Gift Planning. And we're going to take a little break right now and then come back in a couple minutes and look at the difference between a young family and how they start out and putting their financial act together, and then moving on into kind of a mid-age and older age family. What are some of the things that they need to do and that we'd be wise to do to make sure their financial stability is established, right, in a very positive kind of way? So go get yourself a cup of coffee and join me in about 2 to 3 minutes, okay?
Green Gables Care Home is a 24-hour assisted living facility for the elderly, located in Clovis, California, offering spacious private and semi-private rooms which are wheelchair-approved, catering to the special person in your life who needs attention and wants to live in a loving home environment. The Green Gables Care Home has assisted living and secured homes for elderly persons with Alzheimer's, memory loss, and for your loved ones needing assistance with their activities of daily living. Call 559-307-0950 and visit greengablescarehome.com.
Sometimes good intentions hurt rather than help. For just $1.76 per meal, the Fresno Rescue Mission offers more than food. We offer hope. Please donate today.
Do you need a locksmith? Layman's Lock and Safe Service and Repair is available for you. 559-228-1805.
Gained a lot, learned a lot, and got a lot of love. If it weren't for the knowledge that I had gained from the classes at PCC, I probably wouldn't be the mom I am today. See, there it goes.
I would love you to meet my son, Aaron. My situation was very difficult. I didn't know how my life was going to turn out.
We graduated in June 2010 and we got married in July. And through family, the Pregnancy Care Center changed our lives.
The Pregnancy Care Center was a huge, vital part in helping me walk through that pregnancy, in educating me and loving on me during that time.
Choosing a Medicare plan can be difficult and frustrating. Susan Hatch can guide you through the Medicare maze and help find the right plan for you. Susan helps people understand the confusing and drastic changes that occur every year in Medicare. Susan will only recommend plans that will protect your assets and allow you to continue to see your personal doctor. As a 100% independent agent, Susan is not controlled by any particular insurance company to steer a person onto any one particular plan. Susan was awarded the #1 Medicare supplement agent in California. Look for Susan's Medicare question and answers every Monday in the Fresno Bee. Call Susan at 559-307-2287 and visit MedicareToday.net.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Okay, thanks for coming back and joining us in the second segment of Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Based on my book, and I recommend it, you can get it from Amazon.com. Just go to that, or go to my website, booksbyhedberg.com, and you can get a copy of the book either of those places, okay? Now, we've been talking with Mr. Ron Hendricks, Trinity Western University, Director of Gift Planning. And we're talking about putting your own financial act together, getting your own financial house in order, making sure that you have in place your finances. You start out as a young couple, as a young family, and you have a responsibility, you have children, you have a responsibility to make sure that your finances are now solid and strong so that you have less anxiety and you have a base on which to build your life as you move forward. We've been talking with Ron regarding the young family starting out, making sure that there's a little nest egg of $1,000 put aside for emergency cases only and no other use. But Ron, we move forward in age now a little bit. We move into kind of a couple that's more like mid-age, maybe in the 30s. And then we have the older couple that maybe is in the 40s or approaching 50s. What do they do financially to make sure that they're solid and the family that they have at that age is well protected and well cared for financially?
Yeah. Good question, Allan, because that is a natural thing that follows, doesn't it? So we've talked about a young couple getting their first will, getting their first $1,000 saved. Next thing for that young couple would be to have a long-term emergency fund of 3 to 6 months living time, and that flows often into middle age, and beginning their retirement fund. Often they think that's too young, I can't afford a retirement fund, when in reality, that is the best time to put even a small amount aside, will allow it to compound for all those years to where they can have a retirement fund. Remember, without a retirement fund, you end up living with your children, and that is not comfortable for either side.
Sure.
So as they move into middle age, once they have their will and they have their power of attorney, it's key that they manage their debt. Far too many people live beyond their ability, and they'll have this style of life where they want to keep up with the neighbors or whatever it might be. We used to call it keeping up with the Jones,
Sure.
right? So if they can make sure they manage their debt, continue to live under their ability, build a retirement fund, practice a moderate lifestyle, as they move into later middle age, they should even also consider long-term health care. And what that would do would be to protect their assets that they actually have, and to say, what is the right thing? Is it right for me or not? So pursue some of those. Then as you get into older folks, and you might say that's in your 60s, as you're nearing retirement, thinking about retirement, whatever that might be, try and start downsizing. Start giving your stuff away. Most people at that age are looking for more significance rather than gathering. So stop gathering stuff. Start giving it away. Start downsizing, making sure that you can give it so you know who has it, you know where it's going, and then start revising your last will and trust as well. Maybe you have a revocable living trust at that point. You want to make sure that you actually fund it. Don't leave it an empty trust. Make sure you've updated your successors and your executors. Too often people, as they age, will not make that change, and they find that the executor they named as a young person actually has gotten too old. Maybe they even passed away. Make sure that you take that document and say, is this where I want it to go? Are these the right beneficiaries? Is it the right amount for my children so it will bless them and not cause my kids more anguish? You're going to make sure that you're not feeding into any of children's addictions of some kind with finances. And then make sure your charities are involved. You know, your estate can only go 3 different ways. One is to family, one is to government, and one is to your charities. And if you don't have a will, if you depend on the default will of the government, you know they're going to take their share. Your family may get some, but your charities will get nothing. When in reality, you can actually eliminate the government's portion out of your estate by giving to your family and to your charity, but only if you plan that so well in advance. So make sure that you're updating that continually.
Back to that point about charity, because I think you have a very critical issue there that maybe needs a little bit further discussions. But let me just say this, that as you were talking, I get this image, or this vision, that the best financial planning requires looking ahead. The way that you've outlined this thing is you're always looking ahead as to what might happen. An emergency might happen, prepare for it. You know, you have children, you know, you prepare for that and prepare for their financial stability. Always kind of look ahead, what's going to be needed, what's going to be important to you. Your retirement, look ahead for that. Downsizing, you're always looking ahead. It seems like that's the skill that people need to acquire, is the look ahead skill.
Absolutely, and it is something that you can acquire and you can plan for. My mantra would be to plan your work and then work your plan. So if you don't plan it, it's going to happen regardless. Do you want to plan it, or do you want somebody else to plan it for you? Very few people want to be told what to do or pushed into a corner in a situation. It's far better to plan it ahead, actually do things before you need to, downsize before the need to do it, and you end up having somebody forcing you into doing that.
You know, that's so contrary to the way that we live in our world. We live in the world of here and now. You know, we're concerned with what's going on today, and how, do I have enough money, or how can I use the money I have today? And we don't really get that sense of tomorrow or next year or 5 and 10 years ahead. You know, look that way. We're very today oriented, aren't we?
Yeah, far too much, but that's part of our culture. That doesn't mean we have to participate in that. And we are far better off and more secure if we can actually plan it ahead, we know it's going to happen. Something's going to happen, even if we don't know exactly what. But let's plan it and let's take care of it. Not that we're trying to control it, but we can do the best that we can with that. And as that starts out as a young couple, mid-age, and as we get into older age, more fully mature, we might call it, that we can actually go forward and be happy with where we are at the moment and then plan for the future. We can build out and we can diversify that retirement fund. We can have it in different types of investments. We can consider a hybrid retirement where we'll actually work part-time, delay that Social Security a little bit so it can grow until we get to age 70. And then we're forced to take monies out of our retirement fund at age 70 and a half. And at the same time, we can work with that. We can actually roll money from our retirement funds directly over to our charities and not pay any taxes on it at all. So there's wonderful strategies if you plan it ahead, regardless of what age you are.
As I was looking ahead, when I was listening to you, I heard another theme that you were talking about, and that is the theme of not just looking ahead, but looking towards others, viewing other people, keeping other people in view. You had this kind of concept that other people are important also, not just yourself. You know, we live in a very self-oriented culture and in a time of life.
Absolutely.
But what you're saying is there needs to be that view of other people. You talked about charitable giving. That's kind of looking into the life of other people, not just your own self.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not here just to live for ourselves, I believe. I'm a Christian, and I believe that we should steward everything that we have and everything that we do. For others, that might not be their case. Maybe they're not a believer. Maybe they are have a different belief, but there's still charities that do so much good. And there are charities for every walk, every faith, that we can broaden ourselves out beyond ourselves. People will find that there's far more satisfaction in serving others than being self-serving. It's just a matter of being aware of it, looking out towards others with a cheerful and a giving heart, rather than trying to hoard or hold everything so tight. Remember, if we're holding everything tight, we don't live with an open hand. Nobody can put anything else into it to give us anything either. So if we close our hands, that means we're closing our hearts, we're closing our minds, and that only serves yourself, and your life gets smaller and smaller instead of larger and larger.
Where does a young couple start in the giving process of charity giving? I mean, who do you give money to? There's all kinds of opportunities. Everybody's asking for money. How do you determine where is a good place to invest some money? You have, whether it's $100 or $1,000. I mean, where do you give money?
Yeah. So you want to give money to organizations that are going to be true to their mission. You have to believe in their mission and what they're doing. And for myself, I'll just personalize it. We give to our local church because we believe in what's happening in that church, in that it's working within the congregation. We give to Trinity Western. We give to education because that prepares young people to go out and do things throughout the world. We give to world missions. We give to a hospital that has actually worked in our lives. And so you want to diversify that a little bit. To me, you always should be given to your local church. But then also, what other organizations do you see doing the good that you are not going to necessarily do, but you believe in?
Some charity. You have to understand, know the charity, believe that they're doing
absolutely
something good and right, and that you believe in, that you can bond with them. It's kind of like they become a partner. You become a partner to them.
That's right. And you want to make sure they're good stewards as well, and be sure that they're not spending so much money. Generally, a standard would be that they're spending 20% or less on administrative and their fundraising costs, that the majority of their monies actually do go to their cause. And then read their vision, read their mission. What are they standing for? Where are they going with this thing we call life? Are they really doing that? And then how do they report back to you? They don't ever report back.
Does a young couple, middle-aged couple give, or would you recommend that they give? What's the guideline?
Yeah, well, a guideline for me is 10% is a minimum. That's what I believe in. And realistically, in North America, people give less than 4%. Most people consume almost everything they have, and most people, sorry to say, spend more than they have. And that's where the debt comes in. That's where the gathering comes in, and that's where you see cars sitting in the driveways because the garages are too full of their stuff. They're sitting in the streets because the driveway is full of stuff, and they have storage units and things they don't even know are even there. Instead of living more simply, living within their lifestyle where they should be, and living under their ability so they can save and give.
And to a couple that they start out with giving maybe 2% of their money away to charity. Then after a period of time, whether it's a year or 5 years, increase that to 4%. Then after a short period of time, increase that to 6%. And try to move it upward so that you're part of a giving process and you're teaching your children, to give. And you're giving some money to your children so that they can give.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. To be able to give, regardless of how much you start out with, to be able to increase that as your life moves on. But in order to do that, you have to make sure that you're not increasing your lifestyle so much. Because if you keep buying bigger boats, bigger homes, bigger vacations, you're actually going to have less, even though you're almost always earning more. So it's more about lifestyle. Again, it's how much you spend. It's not about how much you make. And the more you make at that point, the more that you can give away, the more that you can save, because you can only spend it once, right? So you need to live like nobody else now so you can live like nobody else later.
So charity giving is a very important part of a person's financial lifestyle, their financial order, their financial plan, their financial strategy. I guess we kind of think about it as, what do I want? What do I want next? What do I want to buy? What would I want to add to my life? How can I get more income? When you're really just saying part of that thinking should be, how can I put a certain sum of money aside and give it away?
Yeah, absolutely. It should come first. That should come first. If you're going to give first, if you're going to save second, and if you're going to live off the rest. That will help you define.
See it the other way around, right?
Too often it's the other way around because that's part of our culture that we get sucked into. But if we really have our minds straight and living our own lives, we're going to give first, always. We're going to save second, so we can live later, and then we're going to spend the rest.
That's a good formula, contrary to what most of us live by, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is, and it works.
Well, we're going to take a break. And Mr. Ron Hendricks of Trinity Western University, Director of Gift Planning, is with us. And we're going to just take a little break and come on back and look at topics such as debt. How much debt can a person have and should have? How much debt can a person tolerate? And how do you handle debt? And how do you prevent going into too much debt? And so on. We're going to talk about that when we come back. So go get a cup of coffee and come on back in a couple minutes, okay?
When you need a dentist who has a passion for superior aesthetics and comfort, you need Dr. Christopher Wong with Cedar North Dental. Call 559-432-4948 or visit cedarnorthdental.com. Fresno Rescue Mission's Rescue the Children program is a protected, secure environment providing emergency and long-term services to women at risk, abused, homeless, previously incarcerated, and women with children. The community provides women and their children a place to get away from destructive lifestyles, offering a place to heal, learn, and grow. Give to the Fresno Rescue Mission today.
At Boys and Girls Clubs, it's not just about trying new things.
Kitchen in my hometown.
It's not about learning the right steps.
4
or making contact.
5, 6, 7, 8.
It's not about exploring the future. It's about helping them build it. It's about taking steps to greatness. About making a connection. It's about proving every kid and teen has what it takes. It's about people in our clubs who bring out the greatness in every kid who enters our doors. It's not just about being on stage. It's about walking across it. Great futures start here, and here, and here.
Sat7 is a Christian media network that uses uncensored satellite television to broadcast across the Middle East and North Africa, and is also available globally online.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Okay, welcome back. And our next segment of Dr. Teach Me to Parent, and our topic today is putting your own financial act together, getting your financial home in the right order. And Mr. Ron Hendricks, Director of Gift Planning, is with us of Trinity Western University of Langley, British Columbia University. If you have a kid that's looking at university, go to their website. It's on the screen, twu.ca. That CA stands for Canada, twu.ca. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But Ron, we were talking regarding the financial responsibility and putting your financial act together. We all carry debt, Ron. We all go in debt. We all overspend. We use our credit card. We borrow money, buy a house, to buy a car, to buy a boat, to buy the various big things. We're in debt. We are in a debt world. How much debt can I handle as a person? How much debt can an average family handle? What's the rule? What's the rule of thumb?
Yeah, great question, Allan. The debt level for different people is different for different people. What's the tolerance or the anxiety for that? The difficulty is, as young couples, often you run into two incomes and a double debt load as well. And lifestyle builds around two incomes. And my suggestion is never take on more expense than one of the incomes will handle. And that can be a difficult thing, because most young couples don't handle that lifestyle very well, because their friends are going places and doing things and eating out and buying and going, that they don't feel that they can. The issue is that most couples and individuals have such a slim margin in their life, whether it be financial or emotional or spiritual, that when something goes a little bit sideways, a little bit off the rail, suddenly that debt gets huge. And what you think might be manageable debt. So, homeowner debt, I can understand that. Lifestyle debt, I don't understand at all, nor can I ever endorse. And people want to go on a vacation and put it on their credit card and say, we'll pay for it over the next few years. Sometimes that works fine, but far too often it catches them from the backside and blindsided that they're not used to, because one of them can get sick, one of them can lose their job, and suddenly the debt is so deep that it causes anxieties and stresses, which impacts marriages. One of the biggest stressors on marriage and biggest points towards divorce often is finance, where disagreements come. And so debt is very, very important that it's managed and only taken on in the
idea
right
that if
areas
I
of
go
life.
into debt with the idea that I can pay it off within 3 months, I know I can do that. Is that a reasonable debt to go into, no matter how much it is? But if I pay it off in a reasonable period of time, it's going to take me 3 years or more, that's debt I should not enter into.
Well, Allan, we can justify
can.
anything, right? So I'm going to go on a world cruise, and I'm going to spend $10,000 because I know I can pay it off in 3 months. Maybe it'll be 6 months, but I think it'll be 3 months. That's fine as long as everything
That's right.
stays
You don't know
fine.
the future. That's right.
But I'm borrowing from the future to pay for something current. If I really believe it in that, if I think I can pay it off in 3 months, then I should save for 3 months and go after I've saved that much. If you really can't pay it off in 3 months, you need to save it ahead of time and go after you've saved that money. So I don't buy into the fact that you can say, in 3 months, I know that I can pay this off. If you can do that, you can save it in 3 months.
So you're saying
and
really
then
save
spend it.
first and go later.
Whereas if you're,
most of us
you
go now and save later, pay later.
That's exactly. And compared to if you're going to buy a home and if you're going to get a mortgage for 20 years or 30 years, different story. That I can justify, or in some folks it might be a business loan. We have a business plan. That's buying into something that creates revenue. Homeowners, you need a place to live. But for lifestyle, it does not work. I don't see that there's ever a case where it would be justified borrowing short-term for a lifestyle choice.
Lifestyle would be buying a boat. Lifestyle would be buying a car greater than you need.
Anything that speaks into your lifestyle rather than food, clothing, shelter type of necessary things, not wants, but their actual needs.
I remember a situation where I went to a fundraiser and they were talking about the need of a particular organization, and it was a very important situation, and people could give to. And it was a very needy organization. And we came out afterwards, and the first conversation I had with a lady was about the new car that she just bought. And it was a Mercedes, and on an expensive side of it. Here she just came out of a fundraiser, and the first thing she could think about was the expensive car that she just bought. And it just was a disconnect for me. That's lifestyle.
Yeah, it's hard to justify it. Yeah, and yet it's easy to look at other people and say, this is what you're doing wrong. What we really have to do is look at ourselves and our own finances and the people that are immediately around us. Make sure we take care of ourselves and make sure that we are living our own lifestyle. So along with that debt comes the giving portion. How do we teach to give?
Sure.
And the biggest way that we can show our kids and our family how to give properly is to do it ourselves and to be an example to them, because they watch. Sure. Whether you're spending and consuming everything or where you're actually living a generous lifestyle.
Let me ask you a question that goes beyond that. Kids get help from their parents. Parents get help from their parents. Where do you get help if you need to go beyond your family? Do you go to your pastor for help for financial guidance? Do you go to a friend? Who do people seek out, or what would you recommend that people who should they consult when they're looking at their financial future?
Yeah, well, they want to look to somebody that's walked that path before. That can give them wisdom and guidance. One of the first things they should be told is you need to go back to your budget. If they say, what's a budget? You know why they need help. Most people should not need help. Most people should be able to earn and then live on less than they earn. If they are really budgeting, if they're really giving, very few people are going to need help beyond that. And I see often too many parents even will give their children things that they want the kids to have, but what they're doing is taking away from those kids the 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 opportunity to work hard.
Sure.
If you think back as we are grandparents and we think back to our parents and their grandparents, very few generations that are older than us have as much as we do. And we want our kids to have much the same lifestyle that we do rather than to do without, rather than to pinch pennies, rather than to say, I can't do that. And we take away a blessing that often is earned and learned rather than given. And so where do they turn to is your question? They need to turn to somebody that's walked that path before them, not somebody that's willing just to give them a handout. That would be an entitlement, but somebody that will direct them into the path to say, you need to get a job, or you need to get less expense. Maybe you need to not go on that vacation. Maybe you need to not have two vehicles. There's so many ways to budget what you have rather than to say we need more beyond because we need to live like everybody else.
You know, then you have the whole issue of grandparents and grandchildren. What's the responsibility do you have for a grandchild, you know, financially?
Yeah. Well, it varies a lot. A lot of people have different thoughts on that. Personally, I say that it's up to the parents to raise the grandchildren. And it's up to parents to make sure that the grandchildren have enough. Some grandparents will want to fund everything for the grandchildren. I don't say that that's wrong, but to me, you're taking that away from the parents sometimes, and you're taking away initiative sometimes from grandchildren to actually know how hard it is to live life and how hard it is to earn that down payment for their first home, to make sure that they're living a lifestyle while they're in college and as young marrieds. That doesn't mean that you don't want to help, but the fine line is how much can you bless them and not hurt them? Because by giving too much hurts them. It's like a free lunch. And there is no free lunch because once that income stream stops, suddenly they're left without and without the ability to earn on their own.
That's right. So really you're saying grandchildren, my grandchildren is not my primary responsibility. It's really their parents. My children are responsible for their children more than I am as a grandparent.
Absolutely. I think that I'll go back to my grandchildren have to learn the same lessons I did when I was their age and when I was young married and young in business. It's hard work and you do without. To be handed a gift that's too large, and that's a variable, what is too large, but to be handed a significant gift at too young an age takes away the ability for them to learn the hard lessons when they're young. Because if you don't learn them when you're young, you don't learn them when you're old.
That's pretty true, isn't it? Hey, we're going to take a break now and come back in a little bit and look at the issue of education and some of the thoughts that Ron would have on education. So get a little coffee and come on back in 2 minutes, okay? See you then.
This is my mom. My mom is an amazing person. She is a writer. She is a newly transplanted Texan. She is a woman of faith and she loves 80s music. She also is a person with a very rare genetic muscular disorder called Pompe disease.
Pompe disease is a terminal, progressive illness. It's a genetic enzyme deficiency which ultimately leads to the destruction of your skeletal muscles. Those are the muscles that control how you move, your arms, your legs, and your torso. When your jaw or esophageal muscles are affected, you can no longer eat and require a feeding tube. When your diaphragm is impacted, you can't breathe on your own any longer and require a trach ventilator. When your legs are impacted, you will no longer be able to walk without assistance. You can lose bladder and bowel control. It affects children and adults, and eventually it kills you. It is rare, but it's real.
Now we're lucky. My mom's still able to walk, though she uses a cane to get around most of the time. She's still able to breathe unassisted, but she can't go upstairs, and she needs some kind of assistance to get up from a seated position, like if she's sitting in a chair. She has to examine every activity ahead of time to know if there are things like handicapped parking, accessible buildings, and even functional bathrooms. All of her activities depend heavily on the weather. A windy day can be just as dangerous as an icy one. She jokes that you can tell what kind of day she's having by whether she can lift her arms high enough to do her hair. And she recently moved into a one-story house specifically with the idea that she's one day going to need a wheelchair to get around. Those are the kind of things she has as everyday concerns. Her normal everyday fears are things like dropping her keys or falling in public and not being able to get up. That actually happened a couple of years ago. She fell and fractured her pelvis because she was unable to break her fall.
I receive an enzyme replacement therapy every 2 weeks for life. It's a 6-hour IV. It helps slow the progression of the disease, but it is not a cure. And it costs about $100,000 every time you sit in a chair. Insurance takes care of most of that if you're lucky, but not everyone is, and the expenses add up very quickly. Things like wheelchairs, accessible vehicles, special housing, travel costs to medical conferences, doctor's appointments, and clinical trials. Luckily, there is a group that helps families with Pompe handle these costs. The United Pompe Foundation is a group connecting funds with real people who need help. This was founded by a father whose son has Pompe disease, and they could not find the resources that they needed. They assist patients and their families with medical costs and other expenses that they need to survive day to day. Every little bit helps.
There are a lot of things in life that we really take for granted, and sometimes the scariest things in the world are the things that you can't see. So today we're asking for you to help us shed a little light on a rare and scary disease. Please share this video with your friends, your family, strangers, anybody that you come across. Education is a big thing. It makes a big difference. And another way to make a really huge difference in someone's life is to go check out the United Pompe Foundation. Their website is in this video description. Click on it, check it out, and go ahead and donate some money if you're able to. Again, this is an organization giving real help to real people who are amazing and need it, like my mom. I love her, and thank you so much for helping us out. Thank you so much.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Okay, welcome back after your little break. We're going to take our last segment here now on Dr. Teach Me to Parent as we look at our financial plan, putting our financial act together. Mr. Ron Hendricks of Trinity Western University has been with us and our guest and talking back and forth. And we just finished up the segment there, Ron, on grandparents. And any final thought on that? And I want to move on into the education question.
Absolutely, Allan. We talked a little bit about financing and grandparents and grandchildren, but I think the biggest role of grandparents of all should be beyond finances, and that's really to show your grandchildren how to love. It's important that they see a grandparent love their spouse, and that they see their grandparents love their parents. And for them not to show a critical spirit, because grandchildren pick up on that and they emulate what that grandparent does. And so with a grandparent, the best witness that they can have to their grandchildren are a witness. So witness versus witness. And to spend time.
Witness.
That's right. Spend time with them as much as you can to allow them to have that legacy and that heritage as well. So I wanted to make sure we just talked about that. That's really, it's relational. It's more important than the finances. And it's really the best legacy that a grandparent can leave.
You're in education, and you're representing Trinity Western University of Langley, British Columbia. 6,000 students in the school there, just over the border in Canada. How does a parent help a child get ready for college financially? What's the thing that a parent should do? Should put some money aside for college right from birth on, or how does a parent plan the financing of college?
Yeah, great. It's financing as well as the emotional part of it. The parents really, certainly, it's a great idea to plan ahead. We have some great college 529 plans are called now, where you can put away pre-tax money and so forth, and save a lot for a child in college. But to me, the main thing as the child gets closer is you need to be with them in it. You need to be involved in the planning and coaching and prompting them to do it. Making sure the kids keep their grades up. They can apply for scholarships. that time that they spend searching out and applying for scholarships will pay them more per hour than they will ever make in their life. And it's hard work, but students, they actually go after the scholarship from the university, from the college, from the community, might be from their local Rotary or the garden club or whatever it might be. There's a lot of scholarships both inside and outside of a school. And then to visit several. Start that in their sophomore and junior years already. Actually be visiting, be on campuses, go to their view days. And if at all possible, for folks of faith to have their kids go to a Christian college, Christian university. It is so sad when I see kids going to a public university where they can get a good education, but 80% of those kids walk away from their faith because that is the time when they learn so much. That's when they meet and they're so influenced. They meet their friends for life, often their spouse. And so if they can possibly see their way to go into a Christian college, even for the first year or two, it's absolutely
that's an interesting
on
point.
my
We often
mind.
think
If they
of
can
going to
take
college as a 4-year commitment. But what you're saying is take it a year or two at a time. You know, if you can get your child to
Absolutely.
finance to go to a private school, maybe the best thing to do is do it the first year or second year, or maybe the third or the fourth year.
Yeah.
And do what you
take
can.
it a year at a time. Yep, do what you can. Absolutely. Let the kids mature a little bit. There's a big difference in maturity between 18 and 20 years old. And they search so much for themselves, for their meaning, and find their own identity that is absolutely critical that they have some positive influence on them at that time.
Trinity Western University, Langley, British Columbia, over the border just north of Seattle. Tell us about Trinity Western.
Right. So I live 3 miles south of the border. Trinity Western is just north of the Canadian border. It's started in 1962 and grew from 17 students the first year to 4,000 students now, with 47 undergraduate degree programs, 19 graduate programs. But it's more than an education. Actually, it's driven by its mission to develop godly Christian leaders, where Trinity's goal is to develop both the heart and the mind. Lots of colleges, universities develop the mind, but it's a matter of living in community and developing who the person really is. And it's who you are when you come out that actually makes how successful a person can be once they get out into the real world. And Trinity does a great job about that. They have a great community. There's not a lot of legalism. But what they find is you don't build leaders through legalism. You need to give some leeway for people to be able to fail within a safe community, and for that community to be correcting and have that person actually take on the role of an adult on a gradual basis. And so by the time they come out, they have been molded in a safe way into an adult that actually will contribute significantly to society as a person.
Be Canadian to go to a Canadian school?
Canadian schools, for Trinity Western, it is the same degree as any public university within the world. It's accredited globally, and we have a significant amount of students, not only from all over North America, but from globally, from Asia, from Europe, from South America. It's a global school, which also actually adds a lot to the education because it's a safe international experience, you might say. They speak English, you can eat the food, the sanitary situations are the same, but yet you're mixed in with so many international students. You get an international experience with while living safely in North America. And that's unique in itself.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that introduction to Trinity Western. You're in a family situation, you have a child, grandchild looking at college, go to the website, tw.ca. CA stands for Canada. And there's no problem getting a degree in Canada. You can come back to the United States and the degree is fully accepted as in any other country in the world. Now, before we end, I'd like to just give you a quote to kind of wrap things up here and put it in perspective. We already talked on this topic of charity giving and thinking of other people, not just thinking of yourself. So Here's a quote for you. Take with you this week, okay? Giving is a thermometer of our love for others. Just put that in perspective. Giving is the thermometer. How much you give is the thermometer of your love for other people. You know, we are very self-centered. We love ourselves. But what about our love for other people? Look at how much you give away, and that will tell you how much you love other people. That's the quote for the day. And thanks for joining me on Dr. Teach Me to Parent. Pick up my book, Amazon, or on my website, Dr. Teach Me to Parent. My website is booksbyhedberg.com. So check it out there and read my blog, and I'm glad to have you join me on my podcast as well, thepsychologyreport.com. Okay, bye for now. Thank you.
CentralValleyTalk.com